Hi lovelies! Today we're exploring something truly special, a piece of Chanel's artistry and history, the Les 5 Ombres eyeshadow palette, Oiseaux de Nuit, which means birds of the night. This palette was part of Chanel's 2014 collection, and I found it pre-loved, still in near perfect condition. It's rare to see a palette from that era preserved so beautifully, and even more rare to revisit how gracefully it has aged. We'll take our time, look at every detail and swatch each shade together, from its softest whisper to its full, rich color. So let's begin. On the top, you can see that signature piano black finish, glossy, reflective, and unmistakably Chanel. Centered perfectly is the white double C logo. It's simple, elegant, timeless, and one of the most recognized symbols in luxury beauty. On the back, you'll find the product information, Les 5 Ombres de Chanel, Oiseaux de Nuit, made in France, and it contains 7.5 grams of product. Here at the front, you can see the sleek black push button clasp, perfectly centered, subtle, and beautifully integrated into the design. The edges are smooth and rounded. It's one of those small details that instantly feels luxurious. As the compact opens, the inside reveals a perfect mirror, still clear and bright after almost 10 years. It reflects light softly, making even the experience of opening it feel luxurious. The design is restrained, no excess, no decoration, just precision and balance. Inside lies a clear protective cover, gently resting above the eyeshadows, and on top of that, two dual-ended black applicators. The palette itself looks almost untouched, the surface of the shadows still perfectly even, with no dips or wear. And if you look closely at the applicators, you can see just the faintest trace of product, a sign it's been tried once or twice, but handled carefully. I think it's rare to find older palettes in this great condition, especially ones that have been stored so well. Lifting off the plastic, you can see how cleanly the palette has been preserved. I like to keep these original covers. They help protect the shadows from dust and humidity over time. I'll place the applicators neatly back inside. The palette always looks complete when they're in their place. And here's how the palette looks like, sleek, understated, and balanced. The beauty of the colors really starts to appear. 5 shades arranged in a perfect gradient from light to deep, all harmonizing beautifully under soft light. You can see the way light travels across the pans. Each surface still looks finely pressed and even, a testament to the quality of Chanel's manufacturing. Even after a decade, there's no cracking, no hard pan, no fading, just quiet elegance. Let's take a closer look at the applicators. These are finished in glossy black, each stamped with the Chanel logo in crisp white lettering, simple, elegant, and instantly recognizable. The first applicator has a soft, rounded sponge tip on both ends, designed for smooth, even application across the lid or blending color into the crease. The second applicator features one sponge and one fine brush, perfect for adding detail, tracing along the lash line, or softening edges with precision. We can see that they've been used only lightly. There's just a faint trace of product on the sponge, nothing more. It's always a good sign when older palettes come with their tools still this clean. It tells you the piece has been handled with care. These applicators aren't meant to replace full-size brushes, but to complete the palette. Everything you need for an elegant, polished look, presented beautifully within the compact. Now for the colors. Each shade catches the light differently. The shimmer shades glow softly, while the satins hold that velvety depth. Together they create the atmosphere of the night light, soft, mysterious, and luminous. Let's go through each of the 5 shades one by one. The first one here, a delicate ivory satin. It's luminous without being frosty, the perfect soft highlight for the inner corner or brow bone. It gives brightness without weight, a touch of light where you need it most. Next to it is the silvery lilac shimmer. It's cool toned, refined, and almost ethereal, like moonlight on silk. Under cool lighting, it appears silver. Under warmer tones, it reveals a soft lavender hue. This is one of those shades that can make an entire look feel effortlessly polished. Now the center shade, this is the heart of the palette. It's a smoky violet taupe, an elegant blend of grey, plum and brown. This is not a flat neutral, it has depth, softness and a hint of mystery. It's what gives the palette its identity, that bird of the night feeling. You can use it in the crease, all over the lid, or even on its own for a muted, graceful eye. Next we have the charcoal grey, matte, smooth and rich. This is the definition shade. It's perfect for intensifying the outer corner or using as a soft liner. It's deep but never harsh, and it blends like velvet. And finally, the golden bronze, the only warm shade in the palette. It's radiant, luminous, and it balances the cooler tones beautifully. When placed at the center of the lid or softly along the lash line, it catches the light and transforms the look from shadow to glow. Together, these 5 tones moves like a symphony. We have ivory, silver, violet, charcoal and gold. A perfect harmony of light and depth. Up close, the texture still looks beautifully fine and smooth. The powders remain intact, no cracking or dryness, just that subtle, firm press Chanel is known for. Even the shimmer shades still catch the light evenly, showing no signs of oxidation. If you look very closely at the upper edges in the palette, you might notice a tiny separation between the powder and the edge of the pan. That's a normal sign of gentle aging. It happens as a little of the binding moisture evaporates over time. It doesn't affect the formula's quality at all. It's just the powder settling gracefully with age. Now let's start swatching. First, the ivory shade. I'm taking a light swipe across the surface with a sponge applicator. The powder picks up evenly, not dusty or loose. We can see the product coating the sponge like a thin veil of pearl. When applied to the wrist, it creates a delicate sheen, soft, luminous and smooth. It blends seamlessly into the skin, giving that barely there brightness Chanel highlights are famous for. Next, we have the silvery lilac shimmer. The applicator lifts the color beautifully, revealing its faint lavender undertone. On the skin, it glides on like liquid light, subtle but radiant. Even after a decade, it still feels silky with a glow that's sophisticated. Now for the center shade, the smoky violet taupe. This is the most complex of the 5. It's part grey, part plum, part neutral brown, changing tone slightly depending on the light. On the wrist, it appears soft at first, then deepens as it sets. It's that perfect balance of definition and softness, modern and timeless at once. The 4th shade is the charcoal grey. It has that classic Chanel depth, matte, even and velvety. It doesn't skip or patch when swiped, even though it's dark. And on the wrist, it gives a smooth, smoky effect, elegant and perfectly blended, even in one stroke. And finally, the golden bronze. The sponge lifts the pigments easily, and you can see that warm radiance instantly. On the skin, it glows like candlelight, very soft and luminous, balancing beautifully against the cooler tones. It's the perfect finishing note to the palette. Here are all the shades side by side, each swiped just once. The colors are soft, diffused, almost watercolor-like. You can see how cohesive the palette is, no color looks out of place, every shade complements the next. This is where Chanel artistry truly shows, effortless harmony. Now that we've seen how softly these shades begin, let's build them up and see how they perform with more product. This is where you really see Chanel's craftsmanship, how each tone deepens without ever losing that softness or elegance. They're designed to be built slowly, so you have full control over the final look. The first shade is a refined ivory satin. The base tone is a neutral white softened with a hint of cream, not pure stark white, but balanced. The depth is light, airy and luminous. The undertone is slightly warm, which helps it flatter the skin instead of looking icy. On the skin, it gives that signature Chanel glow, a gentle diffused brightness, rather than a bold highlight. With one swipe, it's sheer and almost weightless. As you layer it, it builds into a pearlescent sheen, smooth, even, and never choking. This is perfect for creating dimension or opening up the eyes, blending effortlessly with every other shade in the palette. The second shade is a silvery lilac shimmer, luminous and ethereal. Its base tone is a cool silver. The depth sits in the mid-light range, just deep enough to catch the light without becoming metallic. The undertone is lavender, giving it a faint lilac shift that appears more in cool lighting. In one layer, it gives a whisper of soft radiance, like moonlight brushed across the skin. Built up, it reveals more shimmer, but never becomes frosty or glittery. It feels silky, gliding on the skin with that signature Chanel refinement. This shade adds the sparkle of movement, soft, delicate, and endlessly elegant. The center shade is the smoky violet taupe, complex and transformative. Its base tone is a deep taupe gray. The depth is medium deep, giving dimension without harshness. The undertone shifts beautifully between cool plum and muted brown, depending on the light. It's that shade that keeps you looking twice, cool and mysterious, yet still neutral enough for everyday use. In soft lighting, it appears almost grayish mauve. In direct light, that violet undertone quietly emerges. It applies with even softness, blending like silk, and layers from a sheer wash to a deep moody haze. This tone is what gives the palette its quiet power, depth without heaviness. The fourth shade is a charcoal matte, rich and grounding. The base tone is neutral gray, deepened by black pigment. The depth is dark. It anchors the palette, bringing balance and contrast. The undertone is neutral cool, leaning slightly toward slate rather than blue or brown. On the skin, a light touch gives that soft, smoky veil. With more layering, it becomes dramatic and defined. The texture remains even, no skipping or fallout, and remarkably smooth for such an old palette. This is the sculpting shade. It shapes and defines, adding the classic Chanel smokiness without effort. golden bronze is the warmest tone in the palette, a perfect closing note. The base tone is true gold softened by beige. The depth is medium, allowing it to glow without overpowering the cooler shades. The undertone is warm amber, a luminous honey gold that gives life and warmth to the color's story. When applied lightly, it gives a sunlit shimmer. Built up, it turns molten and radiant. The formula remains smooth and finely milled, with no chunky shimmer. It blends seamlessly with both the taupe and charcoal, adding that golden harmony that makes the look feel complete. It's that little flash of warmth that keeps everything from feeling too cool, elegant, intentional, and beautifully balanced. The ivory satin now transforms from a soft glow into a luminous highlight. Built up, the pearl becomes more pronounced. You can see that gentle gleam that catches light like silk. It still keeps its refinement even at full strength. It's not metallic or frosty. The base tone stays neutral and the finish remains smooth and even. It's the perfect balancing shade, pure bright but never overpowering. With more product, the silvery lilac shade blooms beautifully. What was once just a hint of lavender now becomes a more distinct shimmer, reflective, dimensional, and almost fluid in texture. Under light, it shifts from pale lilac to cool silver. It feels weightless on the skin, almost like liquid light. This shade is what brings the airiness to the palette, a touch of movement like moonlight rippling on water. The smoky violet taupe, its complexity really reveals itself. The base tone deepens into that elegant grey plum mix, still soft but with more presence. You can see the undertone change slightly depending on the light, cooler grey in shadow, warmer taupe in direct light. The texture stays incredibly smooth even with layering, and the pigment builds evenly without skipping. This shade defines the mood of the entire palette, elegant, mysterious, and quietly powerful. The charcoal matte at full intensity, it becomes almost black, velvety, and rich. The neutral undertone keeps it sophisticated, never harsh or overly stark. It blends seamlessly into the other shades, creating structure and contrast without taking over. Even at this depth, the texture stays soft, no patchiness, no dryness. It's the shade that anchors everything, giving the look dimension and depth. When we add more product on the golden bronze, the shimmer truly comes alive. It's radiant and glowing like soft candlelight. The warm undertone adds balance to the cooler tones, giving the palette harmony. It's luminous without being glittery, smooth without fallout, and blends effortlessly into the other colors. Placed beside the deeper shades, it creates that perfect contrast between shadow and light. When all 5 shades are built up together, the story becomes complete. You can see the progression from soft ivory light to golden warmth, from cool shimmer to deep smoky definition. It's not just 5 colors, it's a visual gradient, a play between reflection and shadow. The formula holds up beautifully. Even after layering, the finish remains even, no dryness, no chalkiness, and the shimmer shade still feels silky. That's one of the hallmarks of Chanel's older formulas, pigment that builds gracefully. This palette gives you full control. You decide whether to stay in that soft watercolor veil or to move into bold evening elegance. Either way, the texture remains smooth, the tones remain balanced, and the finish remains timeless. All in all, I think it's impressive to see a palette from 2014 still performing this well. The powders feel stable, the colors are still vibrant, and the shimmer textures haven't aged or turned dusty. That level of longevity speaks to both formulation and craftsmanship. Chanel created this palette to evoke the quiet beauty of evening light, and it still does, even 10 years later. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you wish to see more content like this. God bless, take care, always.